Hello and welcome. I'm Ole Brøgger, and today I'm going to build a lighthouse just from scratch with foam, wood, some laser cutting, and all that stuff. This project was inspired by the D&D podcast Venture Forth. I will leave a link in the description below. We're going to use some foam. I have a new piece of foam here. I have a piece of scrap foam, and I'm going to use my handheld foam cutter. And not to forget, I also need my coffee. Can't live without it. Let's get started. I marked up this piece of foam. We needed little islands, a hang bridge, some elevation, a tiny house, and I just started to cut it out. And then I needed a couple of more pieces of foam to make some more elevation. I attached it with some hot glue and then I started to cut again. The rough base is now cut and I use this drywall filler to fill out the gaps of all the seams. I let it dry overnight and then I could smooth it out with some sandpaper. I used a hot knife to cut out a hole in the top of the base. This is going to be a stairway to maybe a basement or a secret passage or something like that. And we will get back to that later. I use this 5x5mm balsa wood list as a base for the side building. I'll need to do some carvings in the foam so the beams will look like they were integrated into the cliff. I'll also need some support beams, but these are just cut up now and will be attached later so it will be easier to paint the cliff underneath it. Now we just need to build the frame for the building so we can attach some doors and windows. I'm using a couple of leftover doors from my boat build. I'm going to use this curled up tinfoil to make some texture in this 5mm foam so we can make some bricks. And then the bricklaying process starts. I can do 2 layers at a time and then let it dry before I can start another layer. The windows are also some laser cut parts I had in my stockpile. And last, I can glue in the door frame. The door will be attached later. I'll use some coffee stir sticks to top off the building. And now for the lighthouse itself. I have this 10mm balsa wood and I will cut out some structural beams to make a base for the lighthouse. I really like working with balsa wood and I can use my steel brush to make some more grains into the wood. I also had some leftover stairs from the boat build, so I will reuse those in this build as well. To make room for the internal stairs, I needed to cut out a recess into the cliff. Then I could start to build the frame for the tower base. Then I noticed that the frame for the house was totally off angle. I need to fix that. Luckily, it was pretty easy to cut it off the support beams and make the adjustments, and then glue it back in. I made some texture into some leftover army painter foam to make some bigger bricks for the lighthouse. And the bigger bricks allows me to do 3 layers at a time before I have to set it for dry. And still, I'm just eyeballing things, and I wanted some height and some angles to the tower. So I started to build a frame, which was the top, and in the bottom I used a piece of cardboard just to match the measurements of the base of the tower. And I want it to be removable so the base will be playable inside. And just put in some bricks, 3 layers at a time. And while the glue dries on the tower, I can finish the top of the base. I use some balsa wood and another layer of bricks. Last few bricks for the final layer of the tower. I cut out this hole in the bottom of the tower in the cardboard, but it didn't make sense because this part is not going to be playable at all. But anyway, it is nice that you can look down through the whole tower. For the roof on the side building, I used some balsa wood, I superglued all together, and some coffee stir sticks. And finally, I covered it with some roof shingles I had from the previous project when I was building the 3 houses. In Inkscape, I designed a spindle staircase for the tower. The tower itself won't be playable, but the bottom of the base will. And I wanted some visuals to go along with it. I wanted to build a nest around the light source of the tower. And for this, I used some walnut. The walnut is a bit harder to work with, but I like the strength of it. And for the flooring, I use, again, coffee stir sticks. Then we need a door and some bricks. laying down some bricks, posters, and inserting the door. I also needed a fence for the nest, so I cut up some balsa wood and used some coffee stir sticks. And for the top for the lighthouse, I used this piece of balsa wood, cut it up in the right size, and carved in some wood planks and used my steel brush to make some grains. And here it is, the light source for the lighthouse. It is just an electronic candle, and I thought it would look nice if it had some planks on the side, and I used some scenery sand around the flame. Geometry and math is not my strong side, but I still managed to make this pyramid shape, which will act as the roof for the light source. And again, I used the same roof shingles I had from the previous project from the 3 houses. I covered up the seams with a couple of coffee stir sticks. And again, geometry and math is not my strong side, but after a few attempts I still managed to make this pyramid out of cardboard, which is for the top of the roof. I glued in some wood dowels as posters, and now we can put on the roof. To give the flat surfaces a bit more texture, I just used some scenery sand. And then it's time for Mod Podge. I will only put Mod Podge on all the foam parts and not the balsa wood and coffee stir sticks. The reason is I want to preserve all the texture in the wood, and for some of the wood I will also use some stain. I'll use my airbrush to prime it up with some German Panzer Gray. I really like this color because it has a green tint to it. It's not all totally black. And still, I'm only painting the Mod Podge. I will use some of the Army Painter Air for this project. They have some triads, so you can have 3 different colors, a dark base color, a mid-tone, and then a highlight. And now I can glue in the posters for the hang bridge. I've used this craft paint burnt umber for some dirt and for the roof. I will use this gray craft paint to dry brush all the cliffs and all the bricks. For the roof I will use this burnt sienna and I will just dry brush it on. Now I can glue in the stairs and lay out the floor, which is made of, guess what? Coffee stir sticks. And while the glue sets, I will dry brush the top roof with some red craft paint. I want the tower to be very bright since it's a lighthouse, so I will dry brush with pure matte white from the Army Painter. For most of the wood, I will use this chocolate brown mixed with water. And for all the floor planks, I will use this stain. And for the spindle stair as well. And we can glue it in. And stupid me, I forgot to press record on a big part of this build where I was putting on all the basing materials. So you will have to see me put on a couple of tufts, and that's pretty much it. I will use the same technique for the door as I did on the big boat build. It is just a piece of cardboard super glued in as a hinge. I'll cut out a couple of pieces of balsa wood. They will be the initial stairs just before the hang bridge. We also need a railing and some paint. For the hang bridge, I will use these threads and I will super glue in some coffee stir sticks, which are 1 1/4 inch. And now we just need to attach the bridge to the posters. I just wrap thread around the poster and super glue it in. And of course, we also need some stain. Ah, there you are. We are done. I'm really happy about this build. It turned out just the way I had it in my mind. And one of the challenges in this build was to use only foam where it was rock and stone, and use real wood for all the wood structure. And I think I managed to do it. But let's have a close-up look. Thank you for watching this video to the end. I really appreciate you being here. If you like to like and subscribe, I would really appreciate that too if you think I've earned it. But this is it for now. I will have some more builds coming up, and we are getting close to the 1,000 subs, so we will have a special one there as well. But this is it for now. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.